tal, amigos de Wonder Cowgirl? Bueno, pues ya llegamos a la semana número 16. Esto se está acabando, amigos. O sea, lamentablemente pueden sacar el violincito más chiquito del mundo y así tocar las golondrinas, porque pues sí, por desgracia ya la temporada está agonizando, pero también la buena noticia es que estamos llegando a la temporada más interesante, emocionante de la NFL, ¿no? Que son los playoffs. Gracias a Dios y a lo que ustedes crean, pues ya los Cowboys ya desde hace unas semanas antes ya habían amarrado la división, ya lo habíamos comentado también aquí en el programa, pero lo que todavía está así como que sí, que no, pero que gane usted, pero que no, que yo, que tú, son con las Águilas de Filadelfia el tema de liderato de la división. Eso creo que está muy complicado, amigos. O sea, realmente aquí platicando pues con el señor productor y pues aquí con Dakota, que no es Prescott, pero es Dakota, tenemos esa disyuntiva donde creo que sí, o sea, los Cowboys pues no creo que les alcance para llegar a ser líderes de la división. Sabemos del trabajo que ha hecho las Águilas de Filadelfia. Ellos han, a pesar de todo, o sea, de todo cómo se han ido suscitando los partidos semana a semana, pues las Águilas de Filadelfia siguen ganando partidos, o sea, y como quiera pues están haciendo lo propio para ganarse ese privilegio. Y bueno, pues los Cowboys, por desgracia, y aquí los vamos a criticar, pues no ganaron ni el de los Bills ni el de Miami, ¿no? Eso ya es algo muy triste. Creo que no habíamos tenido este momento para platicar de lo que había pasado con los Bills. Tristemente, pues como lo sabemos, la defensiva no tuvo esa solidez que nos hubiera encantado frente a lo que presentó el equipo de Buffalo, pero pues es que también, ¿no? Eso es algo que él sabe, yo sé, el productor lo sabe. La carrera es el dolor de cabeza de la defensiva de los Dallas Cowboys. O sea, no hay manera, no hay forma. Por desgracia, Jonathan Haskins realmente estaba lastimado, no pudo estar, que es uno de los principales o piezas artífice para poder detener estos movimientos de la ofensiva de los equipos. Y pues por desgracia no estuvo. Realmente sentimos así su ausencia, porque no hubo manera de cómo los Cowboys pudieran detener a los Bills con un marcador apabullante, obviamente en la casa de allá de los Bills allá en Buffalo. Complicado el tema. Y bueno, y la siguiente semana viene este partido contra Miami, donde había muchas disyuntivas, ¿no? Que si los Cowboys saliendo de casa no son tan dominantes como lo son en el AT&T, y que por el otro lado Miami pues todavía como que no le ganaba a equipos con marca ganadora. Y bueno, resultó todo, ¿no? O sea, al final, a mí no me gustó cómo ganó Miami, lo voy a decir, porque a mí me hubiera gustado, o sea, como para consolidar más de que es un equipo que está listo para dar el siguiente paso, pues que hubiera habido muchos touchdowns, o bueno, así no así extremo, pero sí que hubiera sido como que la victoria como que más con ese protagonismo de Tua Tagovailoa, un pase espectacular, ya saben, o que Tyreek Hill haya hecho esto, que no faltó. O sea, al final un partido complicado porque hubo muchas lesiones. Vemos que Tyreek Hill pues todavía no está al 100%, lo que pasa con Waddle, etcétera, etcétera. Y al final, realmente el que se lleva las palmas pues es el pateador. O sea, por él puso en el marcador muchas veces al equipo de Miami, y nosotros hicimos sí varias cosas, pero al final nos quedamos a un suspiro de poder ganar ese partido, porque al final se definió por un gol de campo que hace el equipo de Miami, ¿no? Entonces es complicado lo que sucede, porque a nosotros nos gustaría ver a un equipo de los Cowboys ya uniéndose a esas conversaciones de gente adulta, donde ya este partido sabemos que lo va a ganar por esto y esto, y como que a estas alturas pues ya tocando la puerta de playoffs todavía hace falta como algo más, yo pienso, ¿no? O sea, no me desagrada, ¿no? No toda la culpa tampoco es de Dak Prescott, tranquilos, ¿no? O sea, también, porque luego empiezan, que eres hate de Dak Prescott. No, o sea, no. No es que, o sea, hay que decir las cosas cuando son, en el momento en que pasan, y creo que Dak no tuvo la culpa. Es una situación de equipo y por supuesto de la defensiva, que también permite que les avancen y que les anoten muchos puntos. Entonces, pues hay muchos detalles por ahí que hay que tener en cuenta, y por supuesto la lesión de Zach Martin, ¿no? O sea, también es algo que pone en jaque al equipo de los Cowboys, que esperamos que en este partido que ahora viene contra Detroit, que tengo que decirlo así, o sea, ellos están en su momento, hay que reconocer que vienen de este momento tan especial que después de 30 años hayan logrado ser líderes de su división, llevándose esta parte donde han trabajado durante mucho tiempo buscando una identidad y que por fin Dan Campbell les da esa oportunidad. Y bueno, con Jared Goff y todo lo que sucede, ahí vemos algunas escenas de cómo hasta se abrazan a alguien que ha estado 8 años ahí en el equipo y nunca había visto la luz al final del camino. Pues sí, señores, ahora está ocurriendo en Detroit el milagro. Y resulta que pues los Cowboys son los que se los topan ahora en esta semana. Complicado en el AT&T. Sabemos lo que ellos pueden hacer en Arlington, pero creo que el momento es de Detroit, O sea, no va a ser un partido sencillo. Incluso veámoslo línea por línea. Hay jugadores interesantes por parte del equipo de Detroit que pues a mí me dan miedo. Jamar Gibbs, ¿no? O sea, ha hecho cosas muy buenas en esta campaña. ¿Qué podemos decir de Laporta? Y bueno, pues ya por mencionar algunos, ¿no? Pero los Cowboys, si quieren seguir pues de alguna manera teniendo un mejor posicionamiento frente a los playoffs o pensando en ese futuro de qué es lo que va a suceder, que a lo mejor pudiera ser contra el equipo de Tampa Bay, pues habría que ver cómo funcionan los Cowboys. Y ya saben, esos partidos van a ser fuera de casa. Ese es el problema. Pero bueno, en fin, el tema aquí es que tuvimos el gran privilegio de poder estar teniendo una conversación muy amena y muy interesante con el coach Kevin Kelley, que pues ha estado muy de cerca en los equipos de la NFL y por supuesto sigue todo ese ambiente del coacheo, las universidades y high school. Interesante lo que nos dice acerca de los Cowboys. Él es súper fan, hay que decirlo ahora, es súper fan de los Cowboys. Tuvo ese privilegio de vivir la emoción de todo lo que sucedió en los 90s. Y este capítulo en especial está dedicado a que el partido del 30 de diciembre, este tan sonado partido, es el momento en el que Jimmy Johnson va a ser parte ya del Ring of Honor allá en Arlington, Texas. Entonces, momento muy emotivo para todos los que somos fans de los Cowboys. Creo que por fin se le hace justicia. Va a ser un momento muy especial por todo lo que se ha dicho de él y que si Jerry Jones y bla bla bla, blu blu blu. El tema es que ese día va a ser especial, así para ponerse de gala y todo, porque por fin va a ser parte de este lugar tan especial, donde como bien saben están muchos que le han traído gloria y pasión a este equipo. Entonces va a ser algo que así para sacar literalmente los pañuelos y limpiarse las lágrimas, porque es el momento, señores. Así que ojalá que ganen los Cowboys para que sea como que la cereza del pastel con esta ceremonia que va a ser a la mitad del partido, es decir, en el medio tiempo. Y bueno, pues hay que estar disfrutando de tanto del tiempo, porque también se va a acabar el año, un partido interesante y por supuesto este momento que va a tener Jimmy Johnson. Así que aquí les dejo la entrevista que tuvimos con el coach Kevin Kelley y ahorita regresamos.
I started coaching high school football a long time ago. I'm old now, but still feel young physically and at heart because I keep myself in good shape. But I started coaching high school football. I did it a different way. We onside kick and don't punt, and we won a lot of games, like wildly a lot of games, and it got really famous. So it was all over television, as far as even news shows like Fox News and instead of sports shows, and then it got on ESPN and HBO Real Sports, and so I won 9 state championships at a high school in Arkansas. I coached in Texas before that. Then I went and coached in college for a year, and then I got offered a job by the New England Patriots. And then I got away from it and started a kids and senior fitness place. So 2 to 10-year-olds and 55 and ups. And now I just took another high school head football coaching job. And now I'm getting to do stuff like this with you.
Right. What is the most difficult to be a coach?
That's a great question. It's probably dealing with the people and holding them accountable is really important, because people have to do their job, whether it's a coach or a player, holding them accountable, but not creating a divisiveness. You have to have a relationship with them where you can hold them accountable and still push them to be great, but not where they don't like you or hate you. You know what I'm saying? So it's hard really nowadays to be able to tell somebody, look, you're not doing this right. And they don't get mad at it. But that's the fine line that you've got to find and face and that kind of thing. But number one on that though has to be they have to know their job and do it right. And number two has to be they have to like. So it can't be the other way around. If you want them to like you, you're probably not holding them accountable for what they need to be doing.
How we can to explain to the people this position is a very big responsibility, and it's not just for your fault. There'll be many things and many people around it for making the job well, not.
Yeah, that's another good question. They need to think of it like this. Like in the NFL, there's 32 teams. And those 32 teams are spending $1 billion a year on players, flights, hotels. They all want to win. Because if they don't win and they don't sell tickets, they lose money. And if they win, they make more money. That's the business aspect. For the players, they all want to win the same because they're all fighting hard. They're all in training camp in July and hitting each other in the physical part of the game. You got to remember, these are all the best of the best that have ever played. They're the best high school players that played college that were the best there, and they're the best. So it's tough to win because only one team wins out of the best, and 31 teams lose when it's all over with. And every Sunday, somebody wins, somebody loses, and fans immediately get mad. Now, part of that is because they charge so much to go watch them play. Ticket prices are so high. So if I'm paying $350 for a ticket, I want them to win too. And that's where the trouble comes. But being a coach, they don't understand he's got media responsibilities with the TV. He's got media with the radio. He's got to help figure out the game plan for that week. He's got to be able to have his own meetings with his coaches, his own meetings with his players. There's so much. They're being pulled from so many different directions. It's really hard to do a good job. Now, I don't feel sorry for that level because an NFL coach might be making $7 million a year. Okay. That means he's making $140,000 a week. Okay. So if you accept that salary, then you've got to know there's going to be a lot of bad that comes with it. Media, radio griping, TV griping, fans mad at you. They took it, but it is extremely hard to balance all of that and know where and when to put all your time. And that's what makes it incredibly hard. But that is why they get paid so much, because it's really hard and there's only a few people that can do it really, really well.
And in the case of Cowboys, 3 years ago, didn't stay in a Super Bowl. So how, in your words, can explain to them now the NFL, it's the most competitive league around the world, and be a winner, it's difficult, not?
Yeah, there's three reasons really that come to mind. Number one, contracts are shorter years now, 3-year contracts, 4 years. So that means if you've got a bunch of 3-year contracts, a third of your guys, 20 of your guys on your team are ending their contract. Well, if you won a Super Bowl, everybody else wants to come get your guys. And they can because your guy's contract is up. And your guys also want more money because they won a Super Bowl. So you can't keep all the same guys on your team because you can't pay them what they're wanting now. So that's one. If you win, people want your players. Two is the NFL is set up to punish you for winning. If we win the Super Bowl, we get the last draft choice. So now the worst team gets the best pick. So that's another reason. It's set up for what we call parity. They want everybody to have a chance. But that's another reason why. And then the third reason that, and this is more subjective, it's more opinionated, is when you start to win, it's natural, and it's happened to me too. My first state championship, the second we won one, I was 3 months later and I wasn't working as hard as I did for the one before. Because I'm like, yes, I've got one. And you just kind of let down. And that's what most players do. And most coaches have a tendency to do and that kind of stuff. And it's tough to fight back. The other part of that is when you win, like the Chiefs, like whoever, the next year, even when teams are not good, so the second half of their season, they know they're not going to win the Super Bowl, they're not going to play playoffs. Do you know who they're going to play their best against? Whoever won the Super Bowl the year before. Because if we beat them, our fans are going to be happy because we beat the Super Bowl champions. So you really get everybody's best game, even if they may have played bad. It's like this year. Let's pick out a team that's not great. Let's pick out Carolina Panthers. Carolina Panthers have won 3 games, I think, this year. They won their last 2 weeks. But when they play the Super Bowl champion from last year, they're going to play their best game because their season's so bad. If we beat them, it'll still be a decent season because we beat the Super Bowl champs. So every week, if you're the Super Bowl team, if you're the Super Bowl champs, even the bad teams play good against you. And so it's just hard to keep winning like that.
Yeah. There are many sports, but we love American football. How you fall in love about it?
I fell in love with it because mine's more of a story I should write a book about. And if you're a book writer, you can help me and we'll split the money. When I was growing up, I had one of the families that was like a bad movie. Like there was alcohol abuse and parents split up and came back and split up and came back. And there was a bunch of bad. We were really, really poor and didn't have any money. Sometimes we had no money. We had no food to eat, but football was always on. And every Sunday, that was my relief. I would watch the Dallas Cowboys. I can remember when I was 3 years old watching the Dallas Cowboys because my life was a wreck. But I got to watch the Cowboys, and for 3 hours, I forgot it. And I fell in love with football. So then when I got old enough to play football my first time, like I was like 9, then I was glad to be a part of a group or a team. Well, then I broke my arm. And I couldn't play football that year. I broke it right before we started practicing. So I had to wait another year until I was going into 5th grade and to be part of my first team. When I was a part of my team, my family was broken, but I was a part of another family. And I loved it. And I loved what it did for me. And literally, if it weren't for football, I probably wouldn't have been alive because I thought about killing myself several times. And that's horrible to say, but I only tell it because so people can learn. There's always something out there that you can be a part of and feel like you're a part of a family or a group. And football was always it for me. It's always been that way. And so that's why I love the game, because I also love the passion and the emotion of the game. I mean, where else, no matter what your political views or whether you're rich or you're poor or whatever, where else can you get 100,000 people in a stadium and none of that stuff matters? The only thing that matters is you're rooting for your team. We're all together when we're rooting for the Cowboys, or we're all together if you're a Chiefs fan. For those 3 hours, nothing matters except for you and your fans and your team. And I love that it brings people together like that.
What do you think is the element magical or get the people charm in football, get a trap in that?
I've thought about that so many times because if you think about it, everybody's like, well, soccer's extremely, people love it. People love baseball. They love basketball, but football only happens once a week. You play one game a week pretty much. And at that time you play in front of 100,000 fans. At a basketball game, an NBA, the highest level of basketball, there might be 20,000 fans. Okay. Football, and football has, for the biggest game in football, they'll have 150 million people watching across the world, 200 million people watch, and it doesn't happen like that in any sport. But maybe the best thing about it is anybody can be good at football. And here's what I mean. In soccer, you got to have skills. You've got to have skills. In basketball, you've got to have skills. You've got to be able to shoot or dribble or handle the ball. And in baseball, you've got to be able to hit that ball with hand-eye coordination is extremely important. In football, if you just give your heart and are willing to sacrifice your body, you can be pretty good at football just by crazy hard work and effort with no skill. Now, if you're going to be a quarterback, you got to have skill, or a receiver, you got to have skill. But for the most part, if you just try really, really hard, you can be good at football. And I think people identify with that, that you can be great at it. You don't have to be. Look, your linemen are big. Your receivers are small. Your linebackers are middle, but they're slower. Your D-backs are really fast. There's a place for everyone in the game of football. And there's not a place for everyone in the game of soccer. And there's not a place for everyone in the game of basketball. But there is in football. And that's why I love it.
If you be a president of United States and you take a days of football advice for make it better your country, what will be that?
Wow, that's a great. I've been asked almost every question. I've never been asked that before. I would say, of all the things that the United States gives money away for, we give money away for dumb stuff, in my opinion. I would subsidize ticket sales for people that didn't have enough money to go to games, so they could go and have the same escape that I had, that made me not want to kill myself, that made me want to be a part of a group. I would subsidize ticket sales based on income for people to be able to go watch the game of football. Now, that would get me not to be elected. That would cause me to not be elected. But people go to on a Sunday and there's 16 stadiums full of people. Go on a Saturday in college football and there's 60 stadiums with 75,000 people in it that love football. Everybody should get the chance to go to a football game and be a fan.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with that. So we know you are a Cowboy fan, no? You love football, but what is the element or what is the thing you love of Cowboys?
Well, I love them, one, because I started watching them when I was 3, and they were my escape. I was attached to them. And then what made, whenever I was graduated college and I went to become a coach, I was offered, there was a shortage of jobs. I mean, a shortage of coaches. So I got a lot of job offers. I got 11 job offers down in Texas. I picked the job that was the closest to the Cowboys. That's how I picked. I didn't pick it on the best school, the best job, or the most money. I wanted to be closest to their headquarters where I could watch them practice. I literally rented an apartment because they had a big wall up where you couldn't see. I rented an apartment that overlooked the practice field so I could watch. And that's how infatuated I was. But I loved them because I grew up with the storyline of the Cowboys. They were the ones on my team. But then think about this. When I was living in Texas, when Jerry Jones, an Arkansas guy, for my state, bought the Cowboys, the first year they went 1-15. Okay. Everybody in Dallas hated the Arkansas guy that bought the Cowboys and fired Tom Landry. But then a few years later, they win the Super Bowl. And they won it 2 times with Jimmy Johnson as the coach. Then they won it with Barry Switzer. And then we started thinking, this is awesome. We're winning the Super Bowl. And then we've only won 2 playoff games since 1995. But every year we fall into the trap of this year, we're going to get back there. And that keeps you back in it. Like, it's like a drug, kind of. Yeah. You just get addicted to it and you believe this time it's going to be the best, and you just fall into that trap. And I've been in that same cycle ever since.
When we talk about the story about the NFL, what means Dallas Cowboys in that story?
I think, people think of them as America's team, and I think they still do. They still get the best ratings. No matter where they go, there's a bunch of fans there, whether they're playing in Pittsburgh or Denver or LA. There's a lot of Cowboys fans there. The same could be said about a couple of teams, but the Cowboys are probably the predominant one. But I think the other thing that does kind of is people don't remember the history of the NFL. The reason there are Thanksgiving Day games are because of the Cowboys and the Lions. That's why they're always on. They came up with the Thursday Thanksgiving Day games in America. That's a big holiday. And they set the precedent for playing not just on Sundays. And they also set the precedent for a few other things. So in the game of history in the NFL, the Cowboys had a lot to do in shaping history. And then Jerry Jones, who's now the owner of the Cowboys, when he took over a few years later, they didn't have a lot of rules on sponsorships and stuff. He grew the game as big as anybody because he had his own deals with Nike and Pepsi on the stadium, and where they could make more money. And what that did was it became then a brand for Nike and Pepsi to show the Cowboys on commercials. Well, everybody loves Nike and everybody loves Coke and Pepsi. So if you got one of those deals, you were being seen all over the place. So really, not only have they been to a lot of Super Bowls, I think they've been to 8, maybe 7 or 8. They've also really set history in the NFL. And I think that's why they're viewed as America's team.
Yeah, of course. The name Jerry Jones, what means in Arkansas?
I mean, is he kind of a hero? Because he grew up and he played for the Razorbacks, which is our college. And then and everybody in Arkansas loves the Cowboys. So when an Arkansas guy bought the Cowboys from a Texas guy, that was a big thing. It was almost like we beat Texas in something. We're a little bitty state. They're a giant state, and we beat Texas in something. And he still has those Arkansas roots. He still comes to Razorback games. And he's got a lot of friends that are Arkansas, and he lets them go in his box down there and get on the sideline. You know, through people that are friends with him, I've been down on the field and in the box and all that kind of stuff, just luckily knowing. But what I like is he's an Arkansas guy, and he still claims Arkansas. You know, that's his roots, and he's not ashamed of that. And I like that. People sometimes, when they get rich and famous, forget where they're from. And he's never forgotten where he's from.
How is the relation with Jimmy Johnson and, of course, Jerry Jones? The people sometimes are confused and they think a rivalry, there be a rivalry or something like that. But how really is?
You know, they went through some hard times. You know, when he hired Jimmy Johnson, and this is what fame does to you. So if you're getting famous, don't let this happen to you. When people get famous, they do forget how they got there, forget all the people that got them famous, that worked and helped them. And Jimmy and Jerry, I was living down there whenever they won that Super Bowl and Jimmy left. You don't fire the guy that just won the Super Bowl. And they couldn't get along enough because I think Jerry was jealous. Now, they were in a really, really bad place, and they couldn't coexist in the same building, so they had to part ways. But time, and you're still young and beautiful, so you don't understand this. As you get older, you get a different perspective on things that are important. And I think Jerry realized Jimmy helped me become great. He helped the Cowboys be great and continue to be. He got us from 1-15 to 2 Super Bowls. And as you get older, you forget the little arguments and the problems, and you realize who really made a difference in your life. And that's where they are now. If you got to see the video when they told Jimmy Johnson that he was going to be in the Hall of Fame, Jerry was ecstatic for it. And I was like, that was real. It was genuine. So he's forgiven, forgotten. And Jimmy's forgiven and forgotten. And that's hard for people to do. It's really hard for men to do. We're the worst at apologizing and forgiving. And I think they really did that. And for him to get to be in the Hall of Fame and go in the Cowboys Ring of Honor, you know, that tells you they are in a really good place, because there was no push for that to happen now. You know, it's kind of gone away, but I think they're back. I think they care about each other. I think they respect each other, and I think they're in a good place. And for long-time Cowboy fans like me, that makes me smile. That's a good place for my heart to be too, because I saw 2 men that were great split up and now come back together, and that's awesome.
Jerry Jones, it's a villain?
I think Jerry does make some decisions quickly without thinking them through, because he's emotional, and people do. I mean, think about the decisions. You've made a lot of decisions. I have, when we shouldn't have, because we were emotional.
Yeah.
And he's done that. I will say this, though. He is an extremely intelligent businessman. And I think he's more calculated than people think. I think he fools some people. And I think sometimes he's made some emotional decisions, like the Jimmy Johnson one. That was emotional. And I think if that same thing happened now, as he's gotten older and wiser, he would think about that through before he made a decision. Probably wouldn't have made that. But I think now sometimes he's a very, very intelligent businessman. I think he makes people think he's making a quick decision based on emotion when really he's not. He wants them to think they're getting a good deal, maybe even on trading a player or cutting a guy or a draft pick. I think he uses that and makes them think he really is making a bad decision when in his mind he's thought it out. So I think he's come full circle, but I like where he's at now as an owner and he seems to be letting Mike McCarthy be his own man, call his own plays without getting as involved as he used to. He still likes to be the center of attention, but not nearly as much as he used to. And I think that's good for the team.
This Saturday will be a so emotional day, because the moment of Jimmy Johnson getting in the Ring of Honor will be great for all the people. What do you think the expectations about that day?
Yeah, I think people going to that game they want to be emotionally touched. Yeah. And I think they will be. I think they've been waiting a long time for it because Jimmy probably, in my opinion, should have been in a long time ago. But sometimes though, the longer the wait, the greater the gratification. And I think this is one of those. I hope it's a bunch of people that have the history of the Cowboys like you and I that can really appreciate it. I mean, somebody that's 25, they can't really appreciate it if they haven't been Cowboy fans the whole time, if they don't know the story. So I hope they know the story because to me, that's going to be one of the greatest days in Cowboy Ring of Honor history is when you let him in, because I don't think this path would have ever happened without him.
And now in this game, Detroit win the division, and 3 years without that feeling. So they arrived to this game with the moment. How difficult will be this game for the Cowboys in their house, because all the feelings Detroit have now.
I am really worried about the Cowboys this week. Really worried. The only good thing is the Lions did win for the first time. So they're going to be on a little bit of an emotional letdown. Okay. And they're on the road. The Cowboys have been good at home, but again, they're good at home because they can communicate because the crowd's quiet while they're on offense. But I'm worried about the Lions for a couple of reasons. One, it's because Dan Campbell, their head coach, motivates them to play harder than everybody else. They play harder than the teams they face every single time. That's one. Two, they do good on play action passing, and play action passing buys you 1 extra second in pass blocking, even against Micah Parsons. And that's been a little bit of the trouble Cowboys will have in the passing game is the Lions have a very good offensive line, and that takes care of DeMarcus Lawrence and Micah Parsons. And then the play action pass, and they throw the ball to the middle of the field, and the Cowboys do well at defending the outside of the field, but not the middle. And that's the Cowboys' weakness. So it's the perfect game for the Lions' strength is the Cowboys' weakness. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game, but it's going to be close. It's going to be like a 37-35 game or a 34-35 game or something like that. And I just hope the Cowboys are on the winning end. But I think Detroit has a very good chance to win this game. And I don't want them to. God, we don't need them to. But I think they've got a good shot to win it just based on the matchup alone.
Yeah. This game will be complicated for the Cowboys. Last weeks, they talked about Dak Prescott, about MVP, but the last games, of course, leave it out from that conversation. So what we think, what is your perspective about Dak Prescott? He will be the player who bring us to another Super Bowl, or what is the process about him?
If I am a big Dak Prescott fan. And I have been since they drafted him, I think 8 years ago. A big fan. And he's gotten a bad knock a lot of times. And it's the way it goes. If the team loses, they blame the quarterback a lot, the quarterback and the coach. But if you look, last night they were showing on ESPN or something, Lamar Jackson's probably going to win the MVP this year, but they put up Dak's stats with him. Dak has more passing and running yards than Lamar does. He's got more touchdowns than Lamar does. He's got a higher quarterback rating than Lamar does. And I'm a Lamar Jackson fan too. But Dak is playing great football. I mean, it's not his fault they lost to the Dolphins last week. He threw a touchdown pass, and he had this much room to throw it in on that final one. He's playing great. There's a flaw in their road play calling. And what I mean is when they're on the road, he has to use a lot of verbal communication. And they haven't fixed that. So if you can't hear, they can't change the play very well. And it looks like Dak's doing bad. And that's not his fault. They need to have a better system for him for that. But I think Dak is a guy that can take the team to the Super Bowl. I think he will. I bet some money on him to win the Super Bowl this year because I believed in him. And matter of fact, that's the two guys I bet weeks ago was Lamar Jackson and Dak to win the Super Bowl. And I think that I really thought Dak would do it this year. But if they don't fix the communication, the verbal, and they got to let them do signals. If they don't fix it, they're not going to win, in my opinion. But it's not Dak's fault. I think there's 7 guys in the NFL that can win the Super Bowl. 7 quarterbacks. If you don't have one of them, you can't win. But the Cowboys have one of the 7 that can win the Super Bowl.
So if you represent all the fans and you be in the game with Jimmy Johnson in front of you and you can say that words of the fans, what will be that words for him in that moment?
That's another good question. You're good. You're really good. You need to be on like ESPN or something.
Okay. Thank you.
Honestly, I would say, for a guy like me that's always loved the Cowboys, he took a bad situation and turned it into a great situation. He took a team that was 1-15 and turned them into a Super Bowl champion in like 3 years. And he wasn't afraid to do whatever he had. He was a real leader. I mean, no, I didn't want him trading Herschel Walker and getting all those picks. And he did it because he thought it was best for the team, even though it wasn't popular. And that's what a real leader does. Even if everybody doesn't like it, if it's the right thing, do it anyway. So he was a real leader. He took a bad situation, turned it good. And really, I mean, I think if you go in Dallas Cowboys, who's the most popular? Who do the people love more, Jerry Jones or Jimmy Johnson? I think they're picking Jimmy Johnson. And I love Jerry Jones. I'm glad he's done what he's done at some point. But Jimmy Johnson was kind of wrongly done. He should have stayed with them for a long time. He like I say, turned bad into good. And he won. He really, Dallas, I lived there during that time. The whole city changed. Everybody was nicer. Everybody was happy. Everybody was festive. I mean, it really changed the whole feeling and the emotions of an entire city. And that's hard to do with a city with that many people in it. And he was able to do that. So I would say, Jimmy, from the bottom of my heart, you literally made people happy.
Coach, thank you for these minutes and really, really amazing time for talking about Cowboys. So we expect we win the game.
I hope we win the game. Yeah, I hope it's a good game, but I hope we win the game.
Muy bien, bueno, pues ahí está el comentario del coach. De verdad, muchísimas gracias por estos minutos que pudo compartir con nosotros y por supuesto con todos los que siguen el contenido aquí de Wonder Cowgirl y agradecerles de verdad que poco a poco vamos creciendo, ¿verdad? A todos los que ya han llegado aquí a la página, que han escrito, que obviamente comparten el contenido, de verdad mil gracias. Eso es muy valioso para nosotros porque por supuesto lo hacemos con mucho cariño, con mucho aprecio. Y por supuesto este episodio va a ser uno antes de que se acabe el año y en lo personal les quiero agradecer todo el apoyo y todo lo que hemos compartido a lo largo de esta nueva etapa donde hemos hecho pues muchos TikToks, videos y etcétera para estar obviamente pues más cerca de esto que amamos, ¿no? Que es el fútbol y por supuesto de los Cowboys. Ahí están las palabras, ¿qué puedo decir? La emoción está. Yo también me siento como que muy contenta de que por fin Jimmy Johnson ya sea parte de este lugar tan emblemático y pues de la historia de los Cowboys, ¿verdad? Entonces, bueno, pues que disfruten mucho este fin de año con su familia, con sus amigos, como ustedes gusten, y que por supuesto tenemos una cita aquí el próximo año para seguir compartiendo muchísimas cosas. Y aparte, digo, no sé si me dé tiempo de hacer otro episodio, pero está el tazón del azúcar, o sea, el Sugar Bowl, donde van a estar los Longhorns en contra de Washington. Pues un partido complicado, que esperemos que ganen los Longhorns, porque pues aquí, como bien saben, aquí este hogar es Longhorn también. Así que bueno, por ahí hay unas caras que dicen, pero sí, o sea, aquí una parte, vamos a ponerlo así, somos de los Longhorns. Así que hay muchas cosas que se van a vivir este fin de semana. Hay que estar atento, obviamente, a las redes sociales, al contenido, porque vienen muchas cosas emocionantes para todos los que nos gusta el fútbol americano. Así que yo soy Laura Sandoval, ya saben, pueden seguirme en Facebook y en Instagram como Lautrec13 y en Twitter o ex Twitter Lautrec. Y bueno, pues ya saben, en TikTok, en YouTube, o quiero que también este video, ahí estamos, Laura Sandoval, seguramente me pueden encontrar. Muchísimas gracias, felicidades a todos, felices fiestas, feliz año nuevo, Navidad, etcétera, etcétera, y Go Cowboys.